Hey guys, it's Tammy, and welcome back to my channel. I apologize, it's been a while since I posted anything, but I absolutely want to finish my MCU recaps. So now I'm going into Hulk. I think Iron Man 2 was the last one that I did. So now we're going to do Hulk, and oopsie, sorry. I am not recording with my selfie stick, and I should be. But so this is going to be a pretty quick recap. I've only seen this movie twice. I watched it a while ago with my husband, and then recently again today, so that I could do the recap on it. Excuse me. So of course I have notes. Um, But first of all, let's do a little housekeeping. So make sure that you like, you share, you comment, and subscribe to my channel. And also make sure that when you subscribe, you hit the bell, and then it'll tell you every time I do a new video. So let's get started. So The Incredible Hulk. I did not watch the old one. I watched the new one with Edward Norton. So I think that was the one that was on the list anyway. So it starts out with the credits, which was very bizarre and very new because that, if you remember, that was one of the first movies that came out for Marvel. And so that was very new to them, and they did the credits first, and then they were, showing little scenes here and there, kind of setting up the movie. I'm glad they've gone to what they have now, which is showing the credits at the end. But so during the credits, they show Bruce Banner, played by Edward Norton, in a chair. He's being exposed to something. They show Elizabeth Ross, who is played by Liv Tyler. She's kind of watching and trying to figure out what's going on, and then all of a sudden he changes and things start getting thrown around the lab, and he completely destroys the lab. And then basically they show her dad, who is General Ross, and he's looking at these are all flashbacks, of course. He's looking at like papers saying, there was a sighting of a green monster, and he's looking at all this stuff and pictures of his daughter, and which come in kind of handy later on, because you find out that they haven't spoken in a while. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get comfortable too while I'm doing this. So, oopsie. I'm pressing buttons. It's getting crazy. I probably should get my selfie stick. But so the end of the credits are done, and then it shows 158 days without an incident, and Bruce is in Brazil, and he's eating, and he's reading a translation dictionary. So he's trying to learn Portuguese, and then he's practicing. They show him again, and he's practicing fighting. And the gentleman is telling him that in order to control his anger, he has to control his body. And then he like slaps him, and his heart rate starts going up. He has on this heart monitor on his arm, and so he basically tells the teacher, like, stop it, stop, because this is going to be all bad. And then they flash to him working at a bottling company, and he's helping the guy that owns the company fix some, excuse me, my goodness, some parts. He's fixing some parts on, the start and stop switch that makes the conveyor belt go around, and the bottles and stuff. And he cuts himself, and then a drop of blood drops down, and he makes them stop the whole line. He finds it, and it's on a platform. He wipes it up, and then he super glues his finger, and then he tells him, you can go. Well, that wasn't the only piece of blood, obviously. There were some in a bottle, like on the edge of a bottle that he missed. He didn't see it. So it gets filled up with the whatever drink, and it's being shipped to the United States. So, um, and then he then saves this chick from this guy that's harassing her, and he comes in to play again a little bit later on, the guy that's harassing this chick. And then they show him back at the apartment. He is on a computer, and he's writing to Mr. Blue and on the computer, and he gets a plant. He has gotten a plant before he gets on the computer, and he makes some concoction because he's talked to Mr. Blue before. I am so sorry, you guys. He's talked to Mr. Blue before, and Mr. Blue tells him about this plant, and he can make this concoction. He makes this concoction. He takes a sample of his blood. He puts it on one of those little Petri glass pieces, and then he drops the concoction on there, and he looks at it through a microscope, and it looks very promising. It turns back to the color of blood cells, so it turns red, and then all of a sudden it just disrupts and turns green again. And he's like, oh. And he writes back to Mr. Blue and tells him it didn't work. And Mr. Blue's like, hey, I really need your data, and then maybe I can help more. And Bruce is like, I don't have access to it. And he's like, well, where is it? And he's like, at home. So that's all sad. And then he lays down, and oh no, he tells him to send him some more blood. So he takes blood, and he ships it. And then I think he actually does that before he tells him that he doesn't have the data. So then the Army sends agents to Brazil after they get word that a gentleman drank a drink, and he had an adverse reaction, is what they said it was. So they said they wanted to know where that drink came from. They got the information, and they sent agents there. So, to the plant. To Brazil. And they wanted to know if there was a white guy working there and where he lived and all this other stuff. So a message comes through on the computer from Mr. Blue. He says he can cure him, but he needs more data. That's where he asks for more data. And he tells him, it's at home. I don't have it here. So the agents, basically, Bruce lays down. His dog kind of barks to give him like a hint that someone's there, and he basically kind of escapes out the back door. And the Army guys show up, and they give chase. And then, of course, his heart rate goes up, and he tries to set off to the side and calm himself. Sorry, my TV just went black. But he tries to calm himself. He kind of steps off to the side. And what in the world? I am so sorry, you guys. Today is just the crazy day. So he kind of steps off to the side, and then unfortunately, while he's running from the agents, he runs into the guy that was harassing the girl, and they chase him to the bottling company. So they're giving chase, the guy that was harassing the girl and his friends, and the agents are giving chase. So he gets into the bottling company. He's trying to calm himself. The guy like gets a hold of him, and he's telling him, me angry, very bad, and the guy is like, oh, you think you're big and bad and blah, blah, blah. So in the meantime, the agents are in the building, and they're like kind of going around, clearing different spaces or whatever. And then all of a sudden, his heart rate gets to a certain point. He steps back and he turns into the Hulk, obviously, and he obliterates the whole bottling plant. He beats up the guys. He sends like tanks of whatever they put in the drink, carbonation or whatever. He sends those flying. And we're kind of introduced to a gentleman. I want to say he's Russian, but I can't remember if he was a sergeant or general. I can't remember what he was. Captain, I think. Blonsky. And he's Russian, but I think he was raised in Great Britain, and he was on the special force of something. This movie it didn't do it for me. I love Edward Norton. I think he's very cute, especially with green eyes, as the Hulk. But I just didn't. I love the new Bruce Banner, and I just can't really see anybody else playing it. But anyway, so this was before that. But anyway, so he like Blonsky, they kind of let him go. It's not that they let him go, but he escapes, and Blonsky is asking General Ross, like, something was in there with him helping Bruce Banner, and it was green, it was like a monster, and blah blah blah. And he finally says that was Bruce Banner, and he says, "Pack up, let's go home." So then it flashes to Bruce walking through basically like a jungle, and he gets to a road and a car's coming, and he flags the car down, and he asks if the guy can help him. And he's speaking in Portuguese, and the guy's like, "I don't speak Portuguese." And he's like, "Where am I?" And he says, "Guatemala." And so so the guy takes him in, and he takes him to the next town, and Bruce is he's on the street. He's like basically begging, and people are giving him money and stuff. So he goes to the shop, and he purchases a pair of pants that have elastic in them, so that when he turns into obviously the Hulk, he can actually fit the pants, which is hilarious to me. But then I guess he tries to figure out what he needs to do next. So his next move is basically to get the data. So it shows 16 days later without an incident, and then he's in Virginia, and he's at Culver University. He spots Elizabeth Ross. She's kind of sitting on the bench. And then she meets with this guy, and they're holding hands, and he kind of looks sad about it. And then he goes to, like, later that evening, he goes to this pizza shop. The guy points at the sign, like, we're closed. And then he taps again, and he smiles, and the guy lets him in, and then they're talking. And the guy's name is Stan, and Stan knew Elizabeth and Bruce when they used to come in. So, they're talking about it, whatever, and he's like, anything I can do to help you, I'll do it. And Bruce asked to stay there for a couple days, because he knew that he had to get this data. And he asked him for another favor. So the next day they show Bruce, because he had gone to the school, he tried to get in, but he saw that they were doing, there were wanding people that were going in, and they were walking under the little thing that beeps, and he has all that gamma in him, so he thought that there would be another way. So the next day he goes back to Culver University, and he goes through a back way, and he runs into security. Guess who security is? it's the original Bruce Banner, Lou Ferrigno. And he's like, oh, I'm here to deliver this pizza on the 5th floor. And he's like, there's nobody up there. And he's like, oh man, I have to at least try. Here, I'll give you a medium pizza for free. So he's like, yeah, go on up there. You're not gonna find anybody, but I get a free pizza. So he goes up, he gets on the computer, he puts in Elizabeth Ross's password, name and password and stuff, and he actually gets in because he can't get in with his own. And he sees that all the data is gone. So he's like, ugh. So he sends an email to Mr. Blue, boop, boop, and tells him he can't get the data. The data is gone. So he goes back to the pizza place, and he basically tells Stan that, he's going to go because he can't get what he was looking for. And so he's packing up. He goes downstairs, and Elizabeth Ross is there with her boyfriend. And she sees him, and he, takes out the back. She chases after him. He ducks and hides behind a trash can, the big dumpster. And she goes out. She can't find him. Her boyfriend comes out and gets her. Takes her back in because it's raining. So Bruce is walking, and then this car pulls up behind him and stops. And he knows who it is immediately. So they run to each other. It's Elizabeth. They run to each other. She takes him to her house. She gives him some clothes, a razor so he can, cut his beard and all of that stuff. And she showed him the data. She stole it before they took everything out of there. So she gave it to him, which he's, of course, eternally grateful. And then they show, because he did tell Blonsky that was Bruce Banner, Blonsky's like, well, I need, everything that I can to fight him. So he tells him he can do that for him. So he extracts the super soldier serum, basically, and basically they inject it into Blonsky. And he still looks pretty normal, and so he feels like he's prepared. He's like, oh, I'm ready. And so he's like, okay. So, sorry. So Bruce is at the school because he tells her he has to leave first thing in the morning. They get to the school. He's walking her there, basically. And he basically tells her, he's getting ready to tell her goodbye. But out of the corner of his eye, he kind of sees the army guys. And he's like, oh my God, they're here. Run away from me as fast as you can. And they just come out of nowhere. There's tanks, there's everything coming out of nowhere. And they're, trying to get him. And he turns into Hulk. And her father is so happy. He's like, now she'll see. And he turns into Hulk. He's pulverizing all of these army vehicles, and they're shooting at him. It's just falling off of him. It's craziness. And then Blonsky basically tries to go head up with him. He's shooting at him. He's doing these crazy cartwheels and flips and all this craziness. And they're in the lawn of the university, by the way. And all of this is going on. And then General Ross says, get him near the cannons. So these two cannons come in. They're across from each other. And Blonsky runs towards them. And then they turn them on. And it's basically like a sonic wave. And it's coming from both of them. And it wears them down. It definitely wears them down. And then he somehow gets up. He throws a piece of metal through one of the tanks with the cannon. It goes right through the middle. And then the other one, I think, smashes the top of it. So then he's like, where are the air guns or whatever? So Blonsky gets back up, and he's trying to shoot at him. And Hulk literally launches him, and he hits a tree and folds up Like, if you've ever played Nintendo Wii Sports and you played the boxing part, and how the character would like fold up all over the floor, that's how he folded up. It was the funniest thing I had ever seen. Um, so he the fight breaks out. He's pummeled Blonsky, and they're shooting, and then they shoot. I can't remember what it was. They shoot something, and then he throws something at the uh, helicopter, and it takes the helicopter down, and then the helicopter blows up. So it's all this fire, and General Ross is like screaming, "No, no, no!" because his daughter is standing right in front of him, and he basically covers her up. And the boyfriend of Elizabeth Ross sees this. He basically covers her up so that like all the flames and stuff will attach to him. So he saves her, and then they show him coming out of the fire, and she's like limp. She almost looks like she's dead. He gets really pissed off, and he just takes out running. So he takes her to this cave to basically shelter her and make sure she's okay. And, they fall asleep in the cave. Meanwhile, General Ross is at her house and her boyfriend's there, and he's sitting on the porch, and he's like, who, because General Ross is like, oh, I'm trying to save her. And he's like, from who? Like, he saved her. You tried to kill her. And they kind of have their words or whatever. And he's like, oh, where did she meet these guys? And he gets in the truck, and they're carrying out paperwork and research that she's done. So, after they wake up, she gets a hotel room, and she goes shopping. He gets a shower. He makes himself puke because while he was trying to escape from them, he actually swallowed the jump drive. So he's in there puking. She comes back. She's like, are you okay? He's like, yeah, I had to, puke the jump drive or the data back up. And she's like, what? You ate it? And he's like, desperate times call for desperate measures. And so he's basically telling her, they can't use anything. They can't use her credit cards. They can't use her cell phone, all of that stuff. And then they have like $40 and she can take her glasses. So they pawn a necklace that I think was her mother's, so that they can get more money. They get this car. They're driving on oh no, they're going to take do they get the car first? They are heading to NYC to meet Mr. Blue. It's also Dr. Stearns. And they talk about wait a minute. I skipped some things. So basically they get to NYC, and how they get there is they try to take a cab. They get the car first. They get stopped on the bridge. They decide to walk. They take a boat from wherever they are. I'm guessing they were in New Jersey or something, because they go across the Hudson. Then they wind up in New York. They're like, oh, let's get a cab. The cab driver is driving like a maniac. She cusses him out, and Bruce makes a joke about how he knows some techniques to stop her anger. So they, meanwhile, Blonsky awakens from his super butt whooping that he got, and he's like, "Oh, I'm awake, I'm pissed, and I'm ready for round 3." So, and he looks perfectly fine at this point. Before he was completely bruised. So they find Dr. Stearns at, I don't know what university that is, but they find him. They talk to him, and they talk about the odds of overdosing and the odds of underdosing Bruce and what could happen. Either he could turn into a rage monster and tear everything up, or they could overdose him and he could die. So, And meanwhile, the email that he sent to actually figure out who um, Dr. Stearns was has been tracked by the army. So the army is on their way to NYC. So the doc is trying to do the antidote, and then, of course, Bruce turns into Hulk. He gets mad. He turns into Hulk. He's in pain. And then Elizabeth Ross jumps on top of him, and she's like, calm down, stay with me, stay with me. And then he turns back to Bruce Banner. So then they talk about what happened, and he's like, is it going to be a forever cure, or is it something that just happened this one time? I don't know. So they talk about that. The army arrives at the university, and then they shoot Bruce through the window with like a tranq gun, a tranquilizer, and they go rushing in. They pull Bruce out because they tranked him, so they have him like locked up in these special handcuffs and have this thing around his head, and Elizabeth Ross basically, tells her dad to kick rocks, and Blonsky is in with Dr. Stearns, and he basically tells Dr. Stearns, whatever is in Bruce, I want it in me. So he's basically telling him to inject him with Bruce's blood. Dr. Stearns does it, and Blonsky turns into this like crazy reptile Hulk mixture thing. He terrorizes Harlem, and then they have to let Bruce go. Bruce doesn't change to Hulk, and he fought this. I think this is the first time I've heard a curse word in or this was probably the first time they had a curse word in the Marvel universe, which this is the first film, so yeah, obviously. He hits the ground hard and he goes into this hole. Elizabeth is on the helicopter. She's crying. And then all of a sudden you see him break through. So he turns into Hulk as he's falling into the hole. He gets out. The battle ensues. Now they're fighting. They're fighting in the streets. Blonsky is running across because now they know that he has, turned into this monster. They're chasing him. They're shooting at him. He grabs the helicopter. Bruce grabs him. Well, Hulk grabs him, and they're swinging. The helicopter finally hits a roof. It's leaking gas, and there's sparks flying off of it. And basically, Hulk and Blonsky are fighting, and the helicopter kind of explodes into this fiery rage, and Hulk claps his hands, and it like blows all the fire away, which I think they still would have got smoked because he blew it into the helicopter, whatever. So they're fighting. Blonsky gets this like chain of some, I can't even remember what it's from, but it's a huge chain and these like bells or something, and he's swinging them. He's asking General Ross if he has any last words, and he swings them at the helicopter, and Hulk basically does Hulk smash for the first time, and he smashes the ground, so Blonsky's foot goes into the roof, and then he throws up the chain and bells by mistake, and then they land on him, and Hulk starts to choke him. So he's basically getting the better of him, and then Elizabeth tells him to stop because he almost kills him. And then Hulk, you see another helicopter come in, and it shines a light on Hulk, and he's like, and he does his roar, and then he just takes off running. He just runs away. And then they show him running through a field. Let me see, where is he when he's running through that field? I did write it down. He's in British Columbia, and then they show him doing yoga, and you hear his heart rate monitor going fast, 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 fast. And then his eyes are closed, and then he opens his eyes and kind of gives a smirk, and they're green. So that's the end of the movie. So obviously Hulk is going to be back. And then they show, this is their first, it's not an after credit scene, because it actually, the credits are at the beginning and after this scene. But they show General Ross. He's in a bar. He's like, hit me, hit me. He keeps downing these drinks and putting the glass back on the counter. And then in walks our favorite Tony Stark. And he's like, I hear you have a Hulk problem. Let me tell you about the team we're getting together. And he's like, team? What team? And basically he kind of smiles, and that's the end of the movie. So that's what starts the Avengers Initiative. So I think from this movie, I didn't really care for it, but we got to know about the Avengers Initiative, and that, you know, Hulk was going to be a part of it. And I think this is what started the MCU. So, because of that, because this was the first movie, because of that, I appreciate the movie, but it's pretty all over the place, and it really doesn't have a point. Like the dude Blonsky turning into this monster, I mean, the super soldier serum should have been enough, but they turned him into a monster with Bruce's blood. And they never really got rid of Bruce's blood, because that Dr. Stearns had made so many samples out of just like this one vial of blood, and Bruce wanted to burn it all, but they never really got to do that. So I don't know if it's just floating around or what's going on. So I just think it was like an unfinished story. But I don't think that they're gonna have another like separate Hulk movie. Because why can't I think of the guy's name that plays him now? I really like him too, but the guy that plays Hulk / Bruce Banner now, I don't know that he could have a standalone movie. He's a very good actor, and I like him as Hulk, and Bruce Banner, because he just makes me feel like he really would be, but I don't think he could have a standalone movie. They might do it, and it may be awesome. Who knows? But I don't think we're gonna get another Hulk movie. So I feel like there was a lot more to that story, because what happened to the blood, and you know what happened to Elizabeth Ross, and you know, I think we've seen General Ross in either another movie or maybe in Shield after. So we may have seen him, but we've not seen Elizabeth anymore. So I kind of want to know what happened with all of that stuff, but I think it's just gonna be a mystery forever unless you read the comic book. So, but that is my MCU recap on the Incredible Hulk. I hope you enjoyed it. Got some laughs out of me not knowing where I left off. It was an action-packed movie, I'll say that. The storyline was just kind of stupid. Dare I say it? It wasn't stupid. It was unnecessary. They could have told his story some other way, but I would rather they had started from the beginning and showed how he became Hulk, and then like showed what he was doing all of that time that they were showing it in the magazines, and then kind of skipped over this part and then kind of showed the end. I don't know. But anyway, that was my recap. Hope you enjoyed. Remember, again, to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and hit the bell so you'll know when my next video comes up. My next one, I can't remember. I don't have my list. Just to let you guys know, it's been a while since I posted, because we've been kind of going through some things in my family, and I also started a full-time retail job, and I have decided to close my company at the end of the year. So there's been a lot going on, and I apologize for not doing the videos, but you will get more videos. I still have not seen Ant-Man and Wasp. I'm not going to be able to see everything before I see those. So I'm gonna just keep posting these recaps, keep posting until I catch up to Ant-Man and Wasp, because that is the last movie I think this year for Marvel. So and I just started watching Luke Cage. We watched Jessica Jones season 2, so we're on season 2 of Luke Cage. So which I'll have to watch again because I have to watch them in order. So, and I am gonna add those in. I was thinking about adding Deadpool, but I don't really want to go into the X-Men unless they decide to bring X-Men in. I think Disney purchased Fox. I think they're just waiting on the final okay from the government. So, um, we'll see where that goes, and if they decide that they're gonna add X-Men in, I'm thinking they'll probably start with a new crew, and they'll start over, telling the story over, which I hope they don't, but they may tell the story over. So if that happens, then probably after Ant-Man and Wasp, excuse me, then I'll do the X-Men series, and then the First Class series, and all of the Deadpool stuff. So we'll see. We'll see. Maybe I'll be watching that too. But you can also head over, if you want to kind of jump ahead, you can head over to my husband's channel. It's Nick Thompson. I don't think it's Nick Thompson Designs, but it's Nick Thompson. I'll put the link in the description. And he and I did like an hour-long recap of Infinity Wars and how we got to that point, and what we liked about the movie, what we didn't like, and all of that stuff. That's why it's an hour long. So head on over to there. The link will be in the description below. And until next time, guys, like I said, I can't remember what's next. I think it's Shield. I think it may actually be one of those one shots. So it may be a one shot first, and then Shield, the first season of Shield, but I will have those videos up hopefully by the end of next week. And I'll be having some other videos for you. I still have a casual play setting video to post. I went to a modern home viewing. I still have that one to post. There's a whole bunch of videos kind of cut up, and I was trying to add them together, and it wasn't working for me, so I have to do it a different way. And then I'll have my Christmas in July setup. I don't know if I'm going to decorate the whole house, because we have kind of skimped it down to just family members, because we're actually doing something else, which I'll hopefully have a video of that too. But so I got a lot of stuff coming up. It's going to take me a minute. I have to be at my job at 4 a.m. in the morning. I don't get off until 1. So I usually have to go to sleep around 8 o'clock. So I'm like an old lady now. But so just stay tuned. And like I said, hit the bell, and then it'll tell you every time I post something. So hope to see you guys soon.